Happy Sunday morning. It's the Masters today, final day. What a tournament it's been. Just want to talk a little bit about news in the real estate industry this week. Lots of things happening. Zillow, which is basically the largest real estate marketing portal, and they've got the deepest pockets, right? Zillow makes money by selling leads to agents, to multiple agents. They sell the same lead. And Zillow, and NAR, National Association of Realtors, just in the last week or so, has given realtors the ability to determine if they want their listings to be syndicated to these third-party portals like Zillow, which is definitely a threat to Zillow's business model. Zillow has done a whole lot of different stuff over the years, but the one form of business that has made money is their lead generation that they sell to agents. And so it's definitely a threat to them that NAR would give the option for listing agents to determine if they want to put the home in to syndicate to third-party portals, right? And so there is some, Zillow saying, hey, if the first of all, clear cooperation is a rule, so they're saying everything that's listed should go in the MLS, which is how it was, and now NAR has changed and saying, hey, it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. And realistically, what it comes down to is people have a choice, right? It is the seller's decision whether that home gets listed on all the portals or not. That's really what it comes down to, is the listing agent having that discussion and being transparent and letting the seller decide, we don't want it to go to Zillow. Okay, so why would you not want it to go to Zillow? Okay, so what's known as a lead diversion program is what Zillow runs, right? And so Zillow sells those leads, like I said, to other agents. They don't send the lead back to the listing agent because the listing agent isn't necessarily paying them. And so that's a lead diversion program that realistically, it may help to bring buyers to the property. But in today's day and age, what it's doing is it's sending someone who's not affiliated with that listing, it's sending them that lead, which with the NAR change for compensation, any agent that would get with that buyer would need to have them sign a buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. And so what it comes down to is it's paying to give the lead to someone else who's going to come in and potentially make an offer and ask that the seller pays their compensation. That's really what it comes down to. Because since the NAR has changed the rules on compensation so that a buyer is now responsible, all that's happening is buyers are signing a buyer broker agreement that says they're responsible to pay X percent of compensation or X dollars of compensation that's worked out between the realtor and them. And then the realtors are going back to, when they make the offer, they're saying, as per our contract offer and an agreement with the buyers, this offer is contingent on you paying the compensation to the buyer broker. And so that's a whole nother discussion. I've talked about that many times. I believe the buyer pays all the commission, right? Because sellers aren't paying a damn thing up front. When I take a listing, it's me that goes in and spends the money up front. Marketing, professional photography, drones, advertising. The money is debited at the closing table through title. That money is coming from the buyer. So my argument is that the buyer is paying all commissions, all compensation, not just the buyer's compensation. They're paying it all. And so yesterday, Homes.com, which you see all over the place, they've been marketing crazy over the last year. Homes.com sent an email to all of its subscribers saying, hey, we don't agree with Zillow whatsoever. They're trying to hold the industry hostage. And depending on how you look at it, you could see it that way, right? Homes.com, their big claim is we give all leads back to the listing agent, right? And so, and at the end of, so the CEO of Homes.com sent out an email, and at the end of the email, he urges agents to reach out to the DOJ to make a complaint against Zillow. So this is just, it's brewing. It's not over. It's a big issue that is going to continue until it's resolved. But the reality is, it comes down to listing agents and realtors have to be honest and transparent with their clientele and give them the goods and the pros and the cons of listing on third-party portals. And I've got a solution, right? So I've got a solution, because the reality is Zillow does send those leads to other agents that, once again, are going to come in and try to negotiate compensation to be paid by the seller, right? And the reality is, we are in a buyer's market here in Arizona. For the most part, there's like a couple of cities, Chandler. There's not very many cities that are still sellers markets. And so it's easier to get the seller to buy in when they put their home on the market. It's been sitting there 120 days, and then they get an offer, and their realtor's like, hey, it's kind of the cost of doing business right now. It's you got to look at the overall offer, right? And the reality is there's a lot of inventory on the market, and homes aren't selling right now because people aren't confident in our economy. So big Zillow and Homes.com and NAR and the DOJ, this is going to continue until, well, Zillow's got the deepest pockets. Zillow can fight and spend money, and NAR can't really. But NAR makes the rules, right? DOJ is trying to enforce them or trying to have control of them. But that's been a shit show, for lack of a better answer, right? Or lack of a better word. But anyway, I think it's more important than ever now that when you're working with, if you're a seller, that you're working with a realtor that's going to be completely honest and transparent with you, that you feel that you can trust in their guidance and counsel. And I was saying, I have a solution for like, I wouldn't want my home to be going to Zillow, right? First of all, when I'm working with a buyer, the first thing I do is I get them off Zillow. I send them to my site, and I build them out their own portal that's customized for them. So a lot of times buyers are on Zillow. That's where they start. And many of them finish there, right? Because with the new change, they don't necessarily want to work with a buyer broker. They don't necessarily understand the compensation model now. They just know that they're responsible for it, or they hear they're responsible for it, and they're like, let me go to the listing agent. So the solution is this. Dual agency is, for the most part, frowned upon And there's a whole lot of liability from it, right? And so the solution is not to engage in dual agency. For example, if I'm listing the property and someone comes to me and they're not working with the buyer broker because they don't want to pay a compensation or they don't understand it all, I am going to say, I represent the seller and the seller exclusively. You can and you should and you are encouraged to have your own representation. But if you want to negotiate terms on your own or directly with me, you can do so. But I represent the seller. I'm working for the seller. Reason being, in a dual agency, once you're in a true dual agency situation, you cannot give advice. You can't negotiate on one party's behalf. It's really, you're just like taking orders, right? You can't give suggestions. You can't negotiate for them. You're just, you're a limited dual agent. So that's not really representation. When I represent somebody, when we close the deal, they know they had representation. And so that's the way, folks, between, and here's the rest of it, right? I will pay for advertising that gets the home exposure, right? And so that's really the solution, is instead of just taking a listing and putting it on the MLS, is to do paid advertising to get this in front of people, right? And then if it's not on Zillow, it's not on Zillow. There's buyers that are elsewhere. And if you want it on Zillow, then you want it on Zillow. Just know that they're going to be selling leads to agents, and those agents are going to go ahead and be signing a buyer broker agreement, which is good. That's the way it's supposed to be. But that buyer broker agent is going to come and ask you to pay their compensation. That's just how it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to sell your home and you really don't want to pay a buyer's agent, then what you do is you pay your realtor, your listing agent, a little bit more so that they can handle both sides. Because in real estate, we get charged per side, right? So there's a buy side and there's a sell side. There's E&O insurance, liability, broker, compensation, splits, okay? Each side is handled individually. And so that's my solution. I'm willing to do representation solely of the seller, work both sides of the deal. As long as I'm fairly compensated, there's a way for the seller to save a whole lot of money and have a game plan going in that they know, hey, if Andrew sells a house on his own, here's what we're looking at. X percentage. I think 3% to 4% is fair. 3 to 4% is fair, because I'll probably spend 1% in advertising, right? So then I'd make 3% doing on both sides. That's fair. That's what I make, and then there's splits, and then my my regular everyday business costs, right? And so when you say you make that, that's not really what you make. That's not what you make. So anyway, big things going on in the third-party real estate portal world. Homes.com, Zillow.com, Realtor.com. By the way, Realtor.com is not owned by the National Association of Realtors. That was the biggest first mistake they made, selling it off years ago. The one thing we had going for us was Realtor.com. That was our own name, our own brand, sold off. So, super important that you have a clarity in this market, right? Homes are sitting on the market for months at a time. I know that people are saying, oh yeah, I've got an agent. I've got a realtor. My cousin's a realtor. This is not the market to be hiring somebody just because you think you owe them, or because, oh, they'll do it for a deal. Yeah, you know what? You won't pay them anything because your house won't sell. That's the reality of it. Andrew Texador, clearly sold, brokered by HomeSmart, 602-909-9414. Here to answer any of your questions. I'm here to serve you. And I'm getting a little sweat going this morning. Have a great day.